Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, can you see the screen?
Pluto.
Yep. Yes,
It
is Pluto a
it looks
planet?
like it looks a lot or similar to the our moon.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I want to do with this.
Hmm.
I'm got a timer set.
Okay.
So what I figure, hang on a sec here. There it goes, there it goes. So got it. I want to do 20 minutes. So this is actually set to 19, so it's like the 1 minute. So at 19 minutes after I start, I'm going to have an actual start. I'm going to like
Okay.
weave my finger or something so that, when I look at this, I can easily find it, the starting point. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll introduce the topic, and then I'll introduce you. So Julie
Okay.
Abard, what should I call you? Just Julie? I'll just call you Julie.
Just Julie is fine.
Julie. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get so what I'll do is I'll kind of do an introductory blabble and about Pluto. Actually, after I introduce you, you can say a few things, and then I'm going to talk about Pluto. And then from there, we're going to talk about Eris and the Kuiper Belt, maybe planets, the hypothetical planets 9, 10, maybe 11. The
Uh-huh.
evidence for those. They haven't been detected, but there's evidence there's something out there. And we'll talk about
Okay.
why Pluto was so-called demoted, and do we need to really care? Who are they to tell us what Pluto is?
Poor Pluto.
Yes. So,
Uh,
and so when you ask your questions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a very solid ending point. So I'll click end right after we say end. Now, just so you know, at 6 o'clock, I'm doing another Zoom. It's going to be I invited several people, so I'm going to talk about Anubis. So if you want to come back for that, I'll send you the link for that. And that's going to be another like half-hour talk, depending
uh-huh.
who shows up. I mean, if nobody shows up, I'll just talk to the camera, get my thoughts out as part of
Oh,
my podcast. And it's basically part of my autobiography thing,
right.
because consider this an element of my autobiography project that you keep pestering me about, at least in my head. I keep hearing your voice in my
Pluto?
doing. No, not Pluto.
Pluto is part of
No, I'm talking about the one at six
the
o'clock.
next one. Right.
Focus,
I'll
focus,
see.
Julie. So with this one, we're just talking about space and science, and
Yes.
don't go off on any random personal tracks,
Nope.
for the
Don't.
next. And
I
then
don't have
then I'm going to
any.
have a definite close
Uh-huh.
for this, so that it's going to be easier for me to, because I did this with a friend of mine, Heather, and the thing was is we chatted for a long time before, and then we
Uh-huh.
chatted for a long time afterwards, and like it was a pain to find the section where the show was. So that's why we're
Ah,
going to end it. So I mean, we're
right.
right now there's a lot of chatting going on, but
Mm-hmm.
I can just find the beginning, cut it off, and maybe there might be a few seconds at the end.
Yeah.
So
I
if you
kind of
want to
know what
talk
you mean.
more, you can come back at 6, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
meeting with Karina at 9, so
Mm-hmm.
9:30. Yeah, we have a weekly thing where we meet at 9:30 every Saturday.
That's nice.
She lives up in Oregon.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I think I've seen pictures of her.
Yeah, if you want to come to that, I mean, it'd be fairly late for you there, but would really like for you to meet her at some point, even
Yeah,
virtually.
I can. I can do that at least for a little bit. I mean, I slept for 7 hours after I worked last night.
Okay.
Yeah, is that late compared to 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
It says.
Late compared to 3 a.m. So,
Yeah, there've been a couple of times where we lost track of time and we literally were getting to bed at 3 a.m. our time.
The other night.
Yeah, we've done that a few times because we don't
Yeah.
have a real schedule.
Yeah, I just want to say, today's been kind of really stressed out. I've started to clean up here because I'm using my new computer here, which has been kind of off in a
Oh.
corner, because to pull it out would mean that Anubis might get tangled up in the cords, because he was getting
Oh.
tangled up in the cords. And so it's kind of been, in a sense, Anubis being gone means I can use the computer I bought a few months ago. I
Hmm.
couldn't use it before. Anyway, I'll tell you, if you come to the 6 o'clock, I'm going to
Mhm.
post it so you can watch it too.
Mhm.
That's going to be
Okay.
part of this, I think I don't know if I'll either post it this Monday or the following Monday, because
Okay.
this is less time sensitive. So let's get to it here. So I'm going to do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, go, and then I'm going to do the introduction.
All right, I'm just following you, man.
Yay! Hey, are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Do I look ready?
I don't know. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Welcome. I am JTG, and this is Fenris, my vicious hound dog, and I'm here with Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
And well, this is going to be the start of something I hope we do a lot. Me and Julie get together and we talk about things. And this one, we're going to talk about, yes, is Pluto a planet? What do you think, Julie?
Well, I didn't study up on it as much as I wanted to when this controversy first came up, but I like to think that it's still a planet.
Okay. Well, I am going to make the case that, yes, it is a planet. And, well, let's go through the history.
Okay.
Pluto was discovered in 1930 by a man named Clyde Tombaugh, who I met. He was a very old man when I met him. He was given a lecture in Oakland, California, and I
Cool.
think it would have been in the mid to late 1980s, probably around 1987, 88. I don't remember exactly. All I know is he was very old at the time, and I don't remember what he said. I had a tape recorder, and I had a tape, and maybe one day that tape is still safe and I'll play that. But anyway, that's an aside. Pluto was discovered by him, and I won't go into the details about how he discovered it. It was just a very long process, and immediately the observatory that he worked for said it's planet 10, because a lot of people had been looking for planet 10 at that time. Neptune had been discovered because the planet Uranus had been pulled off its expected orbit, and it was predicted to be in a certain place from mathematical calculations, and actually 2 people discovered it on the same night from different parts of the world, the very same night. And so anyway, there seemed to be more problems with the orbits of Uranus and Neptune. And at the time they were thinking, oh, well, that means there must be yet another planet out there that's pulling those 2 out. Well, the problem is that with better computers and better measurements, it was determined later that no, that was errors in their measurements of the position of Pluto, not a problem in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune. So they were looking for something that didn't exist, for evidence that wasn't there, which is why you need to know your math. But in looking through a bunch of photographic plates, Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto. He took several pictures of the same part of the sky over several nights, and we could see this one dot move across the sky, and they determined it was Pluto. So initially everyone was excited because it was the American planet. And Julie, question for you.
Uh-oh.
Pluto, the cartoon dog, or Pluto, the planet, come first?
Oh,
Which came first?
I know that's interesting. I know how old Mickey Mouse is.
Uh-huh.
But I don't remember how old Pluto is. But I think that the planet came first.
Yeah, you are correct.
Okay.
See, what happened is Pluto was Plutomania in the 1930 and 31, the early, because it became Pluto's the American planet because it was discovered by an American, Clyde Tombaugh.
Oh,
There was a lot of excitement over it. And
right.
yeah, so Walt Disney decided to create a new character in 1931, during the height of Plutomania, and named him Pluto.
Oh.
Pluto became like the symbol of high tech and, the future and all that kind of stuff. But the thing was, is almost immediately people realized that there seemed to be something wrong. Pluto seemed to be much, much, much smaller than they expected. And so they were trying to figure out how could Pluto be causing these problems in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune, the false problems that they didn't have the technology to realize that they weren't real. And they were determining Pluto, if it existed, was very small, and they figured it had to be almost made of lead, and they were talking about maybe it's made of like a part of a star core or something that's extremely dense. But when they determined that the orbits of Uranus Neptune was no big deal, the errors didn't exist, and they realized exactly how small Pluto was. And that wasn't really until I want to say 1978, when it was discovered Pluto had a moon that's like, well, I don't know the exact number, but relative to Pluto, it's a large chunk of the mass of Pluto. And, without going into details, if you can calculate the orbit of a moon, how long it takes to go around, and they were able to do that eventually. They determined from that the mass of Pluto and the moon, and they came up with it being smaller than the Earth's moon. It's like, I don't know numbers, a little over 1,000 miles. It's tiny, but still, there's a lot of resistance to turning it back to turning to an asteroid or something else. And it's not the first time a planet became demoted. Did you know that?
No, I don't think I knew that.
Do you know the other object that once was a planet? Well, actually, there were several objects, but the main object that became was considered a planet for a while, and then became an asteroid.
Oh, yeah, that sounds a little familiar, but I don't remember the name.
The biggest asteroid is Ceres, and we've had spacecraft. We had a spacecraft that orbits Ceres for a number of years. In fact, it's still in orbit right now. When it ran out of fuel, they just left it drifting in orbit around Ceres, and it'll be there for millions of years because it's a very stable orbit, or until somebody goes and retrieves it for a museum. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I believe it.
Maybe it'll be in the Space Smithsonian someday. Or maybe they'll just leave it in place and build a museum nearby. So anyway, it's not unprecedented. The thing that really came down, though, for Pluto to be demoted was when they discovered something that was more massive than Pluto. They discovered an object called Eris. Of course, they didn't call it back then. The initial first name was Xena, because the guy who discovered it was a fan of the TV show, which was common with it
Yeah,
was either
yeah,
current
I
or
know that.
recent. Xena Warrior Princess.
Yep, I know
And
that show.
yeah,
I can see
and
why.
then and then they discovered a moon orbiting Xena, and they named it Gabrielle because
Oh,
Gabrielle was the
yeah.
language girl. Don't make me have to bleep you because this is for a family audience.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, very good.
Really, pretty much.
I wouldn't have to go back in and have a little cuckoo
All
when
right.
you say something. It sounded like you said a naughty word. Anyway, I should have said that was um, part of our protocol. So anyway, Iris, something at time it's also very bright, which indicates it has a fresh surface, probably cryovolcanism. So it's got a lot of fresh snow laying all over it. And because it's even further away than Pluto, it's probably got a lot of nitrogen ice. If you look at that picture, you see the heart-shaped area.
Yeah.
It's named after Clyde Tombaugh. It's called Tombaugh Regio, which is, I think, Latin for Tombaugh region. That white area is nitrogen ice. It is so cold at Pluto that the air we breathe is a rock at Pluto. And so anyway, to move on,
Yeah,
the controversy.
that's seriously cold.
What's that? Yeah, very.
That's seriously cold.
Yes, cold, 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 cold. Yeah, you could probably make ice cream very quickly there.
See where your mind is.
Yep. So back to Iris. Iris being apparently larger, because they thought it was larger because it had the white snow and it glowed so much, so it gave them the illusion that it was bigger in volume than it is. But when they discovered the moon, they could measure its mass just like they did with Pluto, and they discovered that Eris is about 1.4 times more massive than Pluto. And I'm not sure how they discovered it, probably by watching eclipses of the moon to determine the actual diameter of Eris. And they discovered Eris is slightly smaller, not much smaller, but it's slightly smaller in volume, but it's 40% more massive. Think of it as like a beach ball versus a bowling ball. They may be roughly the same size. Well, bowling ball and a rubber ball, maybe. They may be roughly the same size, but Eris would be the bowling ball and Pluto would be the rubber ball. And people were saying, well, either Eris now has to be considered a planet, the 10th planet, or Pluto gets demoted. And they had discovered a lot of smaller objects than Pluto out there, like Maki Maki, Haumea, Sedna, and so on. And there was discussion about whether or not to call them planets or not. So a group called the International Astronomical Association stepped in, and they had a vote of their membership, and they decided Pluto was not a planet. Now, does Pluto care what we call it? I mean, I think you could make an argument that if Pluto wasn't considered a planet, we wouldn't have launched a spacecraft to take this picture, just for that reason alone. But Pluto has cryovolcanism, meaning it erupts water in water volcanoes. It gushes out nitrogen, which falls as snow, which is where the white area gets at. That's essentially glaciers formed from nitrogen snow. And there's evidence from when the New Horizons spacecraft flew past in, I think it was 2014 or 2015, that there could be an ocean under the surface. So there's probably a rock ball under there. And at some point there's an ocean about maybe 100 to 300 miles under the surface. And then you'll have a thick ocean that could be, 100 miles thick underneath there. So there could be life underneath there in the water. Maybe it would be life without any sunshine because, 100 miles of ice over you is going to block most of the sunlight.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so that's how Pluto got demoted. But like I said, Eris is probably got an even bigger core of rock in it. It probably, Eris being denser, that means that there's probably more rock at Eris than there is at Pluto. So Pluto, Eris would probably be the same thing. The fact that it's so white means it probably has even more liquid water under the surface that's blowing up the cryovolcanism that gives it such a bright coloration. Okay. So have I explained everything you've ever wanted to know about Pluto?
That's the everything and more.
Yeah, ask me
Yeah.
questions.
No, that was cool. That was really interesting. So
So we got
you
about
would
4
think,
minutes. So ask
yeah,
me. Your turn to
you would
talk.
well, you would think that uh, international society would be kind of the end all be all. So why are you disagreeing with them?
Well, the thing is this is what I've heard. I mean, I don't know anybody personally in it, but first of all, the International Astronomical IAU, International Astronomical Union, I think is what it's called. By far, most of them astronomers are not planetologists. They don't study planets. They study stars, galaxies, quasars, galaxy, that kind of stuff. Planets are just kind of rocky and it's been my experience when talking to professional astronomers that at least back in the 80s, I don't know about now, that unless you or specifically talking to somebody, an astronomer who's studying planets, they felt that they were a waste of time because they wanted to see things of nuclear fires and huge energies. A little ice ball is nothing to be excited about. And so the astronomers who actually do study planets say, or we're like, no, it is a planet. And it actually is a planet. It's a dwarf planet. So it's considered a dwarf planet. So it is a planet, but they didn't want to call it give it a major planet status like the other 8 major planets because well, one of the arguments they made is, well, we're going to have like over 100 planets if we let Pluto be a planet and we start doing Sedna and Maki and Haumea and all the other dwarf planets, then we could have 100 planets. And who can remember that in school? And I thought that was kind of a dumb argument.
Yeah. So let's call it a dwarf planet.
Yeah, and it's more important. I think it's more important. The structure of the object is more important. For instance, the moon would be a planet if it was if it wasn't orbiting the Earth. 4 Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede, would all be planets if they were orbiting the sun and not Jupiter. Titan and Titan around Saturn, Triton from Neptune would all be planets if they were orbiting the sun. So, I think the idea of the planet being something that orbits, a big thing that orbits a planet, the star, that's one of the definitions. But there are now evidence of planetary objects. There may be more planetary worlds orbiting no star out in interstellar space, what they call rogue planets, than there are worlds orbiting stars. Because the process of formation that one theory is that there could have been dozens or even hundreds of planets at one point orbiting the Earth, and quite a few of them ended up getting thrown out of the solar system by Jupiter and Saturn.
Wow.
And
that's the science is always evolving and
Well, yeah,
doesn't know everything, so.
but the thing about whether Pluto is a planet or not is strictly a name calling thing. It has nothing to do with the properties necessarily of a planet. And like one of the properties of a planet is that they be round. And one of the things to consider is that a round object, to be a dwarf planet, you have to be round. But if an object is made of water and ice and gases and nitrogen, it's going to turn into a sphere at a much smaller mass than a rocky object. For instance, Vesta is made of rock. It's one of the larger asteroids. It's made of rock. So it is not spherical. But, and I haven't done the calculations, but I have a feeling if it were made of ice, it would be round, just because rock has a higher stability. So now you know, I say Pluto is a planet, and you can throw in qualifiers like ice planet or dwarf planet, but it's a world. It's an ice world. I think world is a much better descriptive word for Pluto. And I've thought that world could be an object, could be a name of any object that has sufficient gravity that you can't get away from it by just jumping up into the air. Yeah, well, there's no air, but like, for instance, the asteroid Bennu would not necessarily be considered a world because, a human could probably jump off it. Or call it a micro world.
Go flying off.
Yeah. I have to work on that, but
That
I think
sounds like
world is
fun.
a better definition. So we got, by that standard, there are maybe thousands of worlds in the solar system.
Right.
So anyway, we should probably wrap this up now. Any last questions?
Not in short, no.
So I guess I'll think of something to do on our next one. Hopefully we can do this like once a week or so, or maybe get into a rhythm so we can do this. And then people will start having a big fan base for Julie, and then sooner or later they'll be like, Julie, oh, the great Julie. Didn't she used to hang around with some guy named James?
They're not going to call you great?
Perhaps. Okay. So we'll end this now. Thank you for your time, and here we go.
Fun.
I'll try to stop this here. And there's the recording. Okay. Bye.